Flight attendant spills coffee on passenger's face, but panics when she discovers he is the owner of the airline. What happens when a simple mistake can change the course of your life? Emma, a young flight attendant, never imagined that spilling coffee on a first-class passenger's face would be the catalyst for an unexpected journey. After a long and exhausting shift, the accident leads her to a meeting that will reveal secrets and deep feelings she never dreamed of experiencing. The passenger, Ethan Sanders, is not just an ordinary man. He is the owner of the airline where Emma works. As their lives intertwine, a new world of challenges and discoveries awaits them. Emma Collins, at 26, lives in Chicago and has been a flight attendant for 4 years. For her, the job is more than just a way to make a living. It is an opportunity to explore the world and help her family, who live in the suburbs. Despite her independent spirit and determination, Emma often feels invisible, as if her efforts go unnoticed. Raised in a modest family, she has always strived to support her mother and younger brother, especially after their father abandoned them during her teenage years. These challenges forced her to mature quickly, and her job as a flight attendant became both a refuge and a burden as the pressure and exhaustion mounted. Emma yearns for recognition and value, a desire that intensifies with the weight of family responsibilities. Emma's life changes drastically when, during a night flight from Chicago to New York, she accidentally spills coffee on Ethan, a 42-year-old man who just happens to own the airline. The encounter is awkward, but also the beginning of a complex web of feelings. Ethan, known for his stern profile and unpopular decisions, looks at Emma with new eyes. He sees in her a mix of dedication and resilience that intrigues him, something rare in his corporate world. At the same time, Ethan struggles with his own emotional battles, stemming from a difficult childhood marked by loss and the desire to be loved. As Emma faces the pressure of caring for her family, Ethan begins to create opportunities for her to advance in her career. But his special attention raises suspicion among other executives. Upon discovering Ethan's true identity, Emma finds herself in a moral dilemma. Her admiration for him is mixed with anger, as she questions the fairness of getting involved with someone who holds so much power over her professional life. This revelation forces her to confront her values and the internal struggle between the desire for success and ethics. However, their relationship is not just about ambitions and power. The unexpected meeting also triggers deep reflections on what truly matters. Emma finds herself at a turning point where a simple event can alter her perspective on life. She begins to understand the importance of authenticity and human connection, while Ethan, as he grows closer to Emma, grapples with the loneliness that surrounds him and the search for greater meaning in his life. As the two characters navigate their vulnerabilities and insecurities, they become unlikely friends, challenging each other. What begins as an embarrassing incident evolves into a relationship that could redefine their lives, bringing to light valuable lessons about love, friendship, and overcoming obstacles. Emma and Ethan's journey is just beginning, and what happens next promises to be a story filled with emotions, challenges, and discoveries that will transform their lives forever. The day after the coffee incident was a whirlwind for Emma. She woke up with a weight in her chest, the memory of Ethan's surprised expression still fresh in her mind. What should have been a normal day turned into something she could barely process. During breakfast, while her mother talked about household bills and her brother discussed school, Emma felt distant, as if she were in a parallel universe. The truth was that she couldn't stop thinking about Ethan's eyes, a mix of disappointment and curiosity that left her restless. At work, the atmosphere was tense. Emma's colleagues watched her with a mix of concern and curiosity. The incident with Ethan from the previous night had already spread through the plane like wildfire. Some congratulated her on the opportunity to stand out, while others looked at her with disdain, insinuating that she had put her career at risk. Emma felt like an intruder in her own life, filled with doubts and insecurities. Ethan, for his part, was dealing with his own complications. He had always been a firm leader, focused on results, but the encounter with Emma made him question his approach. He decided that he wanted to get to know her better, but he was also aware that this could be misinterpreted by his team. Deep down, Ethan was attracted to Emma's authenticity, something he felt was lacking in his usual circle, but he knew that opening up to someone could mean exposing his weaknesses and, worse, losing the control he had always valued. As the days went by, Emma began to notice Ethan in meetings and events, always with a keen eye and a strong presence. But whenever their eyes met, Emma felt a mix of admiration and fear. What should she do? How could a simple flight attendant relate to the man at the top of the hierarchy? The pressure mounted and her concerns became a weight she couldn't ignore. Meanwhile, the challenges at work piled up. Emma had to deal with the distrust of her colleagues. One of them, Mark, a more experienced flight attendant, did not hesitate to criticize her actions in front of others. He insinuated that the only reason Ethan was watching her was because he was interested in something more than just her efficiency as an employee. Emma, hurt, felt isolated and began to question her own competence. The pressure to be seen as a dedicated employee and not just as a favorite made her anxious. The situation intensified when Emma and Ethan were assigned to a flight together. The atmosphere was charged with tension. Emma felt that every move she made was being watched, and Ethan's presence only heightened her insecurity. During the flight, while serving the passengers, she did her best to keep her composure, but anxiety caused her to make mistakes. One drink was spilled, and she found herself being called aside by Ethan, who, despite his calm voice, had an expression that mixed concern and disappointment. "Emma, are you okay?" he asked, her penetrating gaze making his heart race. The question was sincere, but Emma didn't know how to respond. She was feeling overwhelmed, not just by the pressure of work, but also by the weight of the expectations she had placed on herself. What had started as an unexpected connection now felt like an emotional trap. As she tried to find the right words, Emma felt everything was crumbling. She had worked so hard to be recognized, and suddenly, everything seemed to be slipping through her fingers. The need for approval forced her to act in ways that did not reflect who she really was. Ethan, noticing her internal struggle, decided to intervene. "I know you feel pressured, but I want you to know that you are an amazing employee. Don't let others' opinions affect you," he said, the sincerity in his voice cutting through the confusion in Emma's mind. That was the first time she truly felt seen by him, not just as a flight attendant, but as a person. However, the friendship that was beginning to blossom between them faced obstacles. Emma knew she couldn't allow herself to be vulnerable, especially in an environment where betrayal could come from the most unexpected places. The fear of losing the new connection she was forming with Ethan, coupled with the desire to be respected by her colleagues, forced her to wonder if it was possible to find a balance between her personal and professional life. Emma was at a critical point in her life where her beliefs about success and recognition were being challenged. She needed to decide whether she would continue to hide behind her insecurities or have the courage to embrace the new friendship and the opportunities it might bring. What she didn't know was that the journey was just beginning, and that true change would require more than courage. It would require a deep and transformative restart. Emma was in an emotional whirlwind. The conversation with Ethan, although encouraging, had not eased her insecurities. Each passing day at work felt like a constant struggle to balance her responsibilities and the pressure coming from her colleagues' expectations. She felt as if she were on a stage, playing a role that wasn't hers, and with each new scene, the fear of failing grew even more. As she tried to focus on her work, Mark's stares became increasingly heavy. He was not content to simply criticize Emma. It seemed he sought to expose any mistake she made. During a break, while the other flight attendants talked about their experiences on international flights, Mark turned to Emma and with a sarcastic smile said, "I hope you don't spill another drink next time you're near the director. I don't want you to become the company's joke." His words cut like a knife, and Emma felt the heat of humiliation rise to her face. All her dedication and effort felt insignificant in light of the contempt she faced. Tension heightened when Emma learned that the team's next trip would be to an international conference, where Ethan would be one of the speakers. She was sure everyone would be watching her, waiting for her to make a mistake. The pressure became almost unbearable, and Emma began to feel the physical effects of stress. Nights were filled with insomnia and worry, and her days were marked by a fatigue that prevented her from giving her best. However, something within her began to change. Emma realized she could not allow Mark or anyone else to define her. She started to remember her passion for traveling, meeting new people, and experiencing new cultures. This memory ignited a small flame of determination within her. That night, she decided that no matter what happened, she would not let fear paralyze her. On the day of the trip, Emma woke up earlier, anxious and determined. She reviewed every detail of what she needed to do and mentally prepared herself to face the challenges. As she boarded the plane, she felt nervousness hit her again, but she took a deep breath and put one foot in front of the other. When she spotted Ethan, who was organizing his presentation, A mix of comfort and anxiety washed over her. He looked so focused and self-assured, yet so approachable at the same time. Before we continue with this exciting story, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any stories. And let us know which city you're watching this video from in the comments. During the flight, Emma worked hard to stay focused. She interacted with the passengers and did her best to ensure everyone was satisfied. However, a new twist arose when one of the passengers began to feel unwell. Emma immediately recalled her emergency training and, despite the growing panic, managed to remain calm. When Ethan approached to help, Emma felt this was her chance to prove her worth. With Ethan's help, they managed to stabilize the situation and ensure the passenger received the necessary care. However, when they finally sat in a corner of the plane to catch their breath, the tension between them increased. Ethan looked at Emma with a mix of admiration and concern. She was amazing back there, he said, but Emma couldn't help but notice the shadow of doubt in his gaze. Did he still question her abilities? What should have been a moment of victory quickly turned into a new challenge. Emma realized that although they had successfully handled the emergency, Ethan's look still carried a worry that made her uneasy. What did he think of her? She wanted him to see her as a colleague, not someone who needed protection. The pressure to assert herself was affecting her performance. The following week, as she prepared for a new trip, Emma made a mistake by not checking the passenger list correctly. When Mark confronted her, she felt the ground open beneath her feet. "Maybe you should reconsider your position," he said with a smug smile. And Emma was sure everyone was waiting to see how she would react. This time, however, Emma did not let herself be defeated. Instead of succumbing to the pressure, she sought Ethan's support. During a meeting, she raised her hand and shared her concerns about what she was facing at work. To her surprise, Ethan backed her up in front of everyone, highlighting her qualities and the importance of teamwork. That validation made her stronger, but it also made her question whether she was ready to let go of her insecurities for the sake of a new friendship. Their interactions became more frequent, but there was always a shadow of doubt hovering over their connection. Emma was starting to understand that her friendship with Ethan could be more than just professional support. It could be a path to better self-understanding. But at the same time, she feared that this new friendship could turn into something more complicated, something she wasn't ready to face. With each new challenge, Emma was learning more about herself, but the journey was far from easy. The fear of failure and the desire for approval still haunted her, and she knew she needed to confront those emotions if she truly wanted to move forward. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: Emma was transforming, and the true battle was just beginning. Emma was in the midst of a new routine, trying to adapt to the support she had received from Ethan. Despite the difficulties she faced, she felt more confident in her abilities. However, the shadow of Mark still followed her, like a constant specter, ready to destabilize her progress. But in an unexpected moment, everything would change. On a sunny afternoon, while preparing for a new trip, Emma was surprised by a call from her supervisor. He summoned her to an urgent meeting. Her heart raced. What could be happening, she thought. When she entered the room, she found not only her supervisor, but also Mark and other team members. The atmosphere was tense, and Emma felt a chill in her stomach. The supervisor began to speak, and the words that came out of his mouth crumbled the world Emma was trying to rebuild. A series of complaints had been made about the team's performance, and consequently they were reviewing the training of all the flight attendants. Mark, with a smile Emma knew all too well, seemed to be relishing the situation. "It seems someone isn't keeping up," he commented, looking at her with a satisfied air. Emma felt the ground open beneath her feet. Those words hit her like a punch in the stomach. The confidence she had tried to build crumbled in an instant. She was about to protest, but the words got stuck in her throat. The meeting continued, but Emma couldn't pay attention. Her mind was occupied with the doubts that haunted her. What if I really wasn't good enough? What if Mark was right? After the meeting, Emma left the room feeling lost. She walked through the hallways, the weight of frustration following her. The insecurities she thought she had overcome came rushing back. What troubled her even more was the possibility of being removed from the team. All her effort, all the sleepless nights, seemed futile now. Sitting on a bench in the park near work, Emma realized she needed some time to think. What did she really want? What was success for her? The answers seemed distant and nebulous. What should have been a new phase of growth was turning into a nightmare. As she reflected, something inside her began to change again. The despair was oppressive, but there was also a thread of determination emerging. At that moment, she remembered everything she had achieved so far. She recalled the hardships she had overcome throughout her life, the small victories that had shaped her. Emma realized that the true battle was not just with Mark, or with others' expectations, but with her own perception of herself. She needed to confront her flaws, not just to please others, but to feel good about herself. Determined, Emma decided that no matter what happened, she would have to fight for her place. She could no longer allow fear to dominate her. As she returned home that night, her mind was clear. She needed a strategy. The first thing she would do was seek Ethan's support once again. He had proven to be a valuable ally, and perhaps together they could find a solution to what was happening. The next day, Emma approached Ethan, sharing her concerns and what had happened in the meeting. To her surprise, Ethan listened attentively. He told her that she was not alone in this. They needed to come together as a team and prepare something that would show how valuable she was to all of them. His words brought new breath to Emma. She had never thought of uniting with her colleagues in this way. Together, they began to work on a project that highlighted the team's achievements and each member's skills. Emma started to feel part of something bigger, and the collaboration helped restore her confidence. However, the journey was far from easy. Mark, noticing the change in Emma's behavior, intensified his provocations. But instead of being discouraged, she focused on her work and the support she found in Ethan and the team. The emotional impact of this turnaround was significant for Emma. She realized that true strength did not come from the absence of failures, but from the ability to rise after each fall. The journey would not be linear, but now she was willing to face it head-on. And as she looked to the future, Emma understood that the true measure of success was not the approval of others, but the confidence she was building within herself. Emma was determined to change her trajectory. With Ethan's support, she felt rejuvenated, but she knew that the road ahead would still be challenging. When she returned to work, a sense of nervousness accompanied her. The atmosphere in the team felt different, and she could sense the stares of some colleagues, especially Mark's, who wouldn't leave her alone. That morning, as everyone gathered to discuss the new project, Emma sat next to Ethan, seeking comfort in his presence. The room was filled with murmurs, but Emma took a deep breath and decided she needed to speak. It was time to show that she was ready to face challenges. When it was her turn to present, she began to share her ideas with confidence. The words flowed, and for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was being heard. However, not everything went as planned. Mark, who was sitting at the back of the room, raised his hand. He sarcastically questioned whether Emma truly believed her ideas would work, pointing out past failures with similar approaches. The impact of his words hit Emma like a blow. She felt heat rise to her face, and insecurities began to creep back in. But instead of backing down, she decided not to retreat. She stated that if they worked together and supported each other, they could find a solution. After the meeting, Emma retreated to the bathroom. She looked in the mirror and saw the struggle reflected in her eyes. It was difficult, but she needed to remind herself of her goal. With each challenge she faced, she was shaping herself, becoming stronger. As she exited, she found Ethan waiting for her, concerned. He told her she was amazing and advised her not to let Mark's provocations get to her, explaining that Mark was trying to destabilize her because he sensed her growth. Those words were a balm amid the emotional storm she was facing. In the following days, Emma dedicated herself to strengthening her position in the team. She met with other colleagues, listened to their concerns, and began to build a collaborative environment. However, Mark's constant presence still bothered her. He seemed determined to make her feel small. One day, while they were working in a group, he made a hurtful comment about an idea that Emma had suggested. The room fell silent, and Emma felt anger rise within her. But instead of exploding, she took a deep breath and said that she believed everyone had something to contribute, and suggested they focus on solutions instead of dwelling on criticism. Emma's response surprised her colleagues and made her feel stronger. She realized that her growth did not depend solely on Ethan or the team's approval, but rather on her own determination to assert herself. However, Mark's provocations did not diminish. He continued to spread rumors and tried to destabilize her at every opportunity. Emma began to feel the emotional weight of this. Sometimes she found herself wondering if she was truly capable of handling it all. On a particularly tough night, Emma decided to go to a nearby cafe. She needed some time for herself. While sipping her coffee, she started writing in her journal. It was a way to organize her thoughts and emotions. She wrote about her struggles, her insecurities, but also about the small victories she was achieving. The act of putting everything on paper helped clear her mind. Emma realized that while Mark was an obstacle, he could not define who she was. In the following days, Emma began to seek more emotional support. She talked to colleagues who encouraged her and shared her experiences with them. These conversations helped alleviate the pressure she felt. She remembered that she was not alone and that there were people around her willing to support her. This new support network began to make a difference in her self-esteem. However, the internal battle still persisted. Emma often questioned whether she was doing the right thing and if she would truly be able to overcome the adversities. But with each challenge, she remembered her determination and how much she had grown. Through the difficulties, Emma realized that she was becoming more than just a flight attendant. She was shaping herself into a leader. As she walked home one night, feeling lighter, Emma smiled as she reflected on everything she had achieved. The insecurities still existed, but she now had tools to confront them. The road ahead would still be long, but she was determined to move forward one step at a time, with the certainty that she was becoming the strongest version of herself. Above all, Emma knew that true victory lay in believing in herself and her ability to overcome any obstacle. Emma was resolved to change her trajectory. With Ethan's support, she felt invigorated, but she knew the path ahead would still be challenging. When she returned to work, a sense of nervousness accompanied her. The atmosphere in the team felt different, and she could feel the stares of some colleagues, especially Mark's, which wouldn't let her be. That morning, as everyone gathered to discuss the new project, Emma sat next to Ethan, seeking comfort in his presence. The room was filled with murmurs, but Emma took a deep breath and decided she needed to speak up. It was time to show that she was ready to face the challenges. When it was her turn to present, she began to share her ideas with confidence. The words flowed, and for the first time in a long time, Emma felt that she was being heard. However, not everything went as planned. Mark, who was sitting at the back of the room, raised his hand. "Emma, do you really think this will work? We've tried various approaches before and they didn't succeed," he said with a sarcastic tone. The impact of his words hit Emma like a blow. She felt heat rise to her face, and insecurities began to resurface. But instead of letting it get her down, she decided she would not back down. "I believe that if we work together and support each other, we can find a solution," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. After the meeting, Emma retreated to the bathroom. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw the struggle reflected in her eyes. It was hard, but she needed to remind herself of her goal. With each challenge she faced, she was shaping herself, strengthening herself. As she left, she found Ethan waiting for her, concerned. "You were amazing, Emma. Don't let Mark's taunts get to you. He's just trying to destabilize you because he feels you're growing," he said. Those words were a balm amidst the emotional storm she was facing. In the following days, Emma dedicated herself to strengthening her position in the team. She met with other colleagues, listened to their concerns, and began to foster a collaborative environment. However, Mark's constant presence still bothered her. He seemed determined to make her feel small. One day, while they were working in a group, he made a nasty comment about an idea Emma had suggested. The room fell silent, and Emma felt anger rising within her. But instead of exploding, she took a deep breath and said, "I think we all have something to contribute. Let's focus on solutions instead of dwelling on criticism." Emma's response surprised her colleagues and made her feel stronger. She realized that her growth depended not only on Ethan's approval or the team's, but also on her own determination to assert herself. However, Mark's provocations did not diminish. He continued to spread rumors and try to destabilize her at every opportunity. Emma began to feel the emotional weight of it. Sometimes she caught herself wondering if she could really handle all of this. One particularly difficult night, Emma decided to go to a nearby cafe. She needed some time for herself. As she sipped her coffee, she started writing in her journal. It was a way to organize her thoughts and emotions. She wrote about her struggles, her insecurities, but also about the small victories she was achieving. The act of putting everything on paper helped clear her mind. Emma realized that although Mark was an obstacle, he could not define who she was. In the following days, Emma began to seek more emotional support. She talked to colleagues who encouraged her and shared her experiences with them. The conversations helped ease the pressure she felt. She remembered that she was not alone, that there were people around her willing to support her. This new support network began to make a difference in her self-esteem. Emma's growth was evident. She began to speak up more frequently in meetings, contributing ideas and asking questions. Each small step brought her closer to her true essence. She realized that success was not just about recognition or material wealth, but about feeling fulfilled and at peace with herself. Faced with each challenge, Emma began to apply the lessons she had learned. She understood that Mark's criticisms said more about him than about her. Wisdom emerged from her experiences, allowing her to see the world in a new light. What once shook her now made her stronger. Emma began to see obstacles as opportunities for growth. Ethan, always by her side, became an invaluable friend. Their friendship evolved, providing mutual support amid difficulties. Emma knew that over time, she would become the leader she had always wanted to be, a leader who inspires and supports others. At the end of each day, looking back, Emma smiled. She had faced her fears and found strength within herself. The insecurities still existed, but now she had tools to confront them. The road ahead would still be long, but she was willing to move forward one step at a time, with the certainty that she was becoming the strongest version of herself. Emma knew that true victory lay in believing in herself and her ability to overcome any obstacle. Emma was sitting at her desk, her gaze fixed on the computer screen, but her mind was far away. The tension in the air was palpable. The project she had defended with such fervor was at stake, and the next meeting would be crucial. Mark, as always, was ready to attack. He had become a shadow in her life, always ready to criticize, always trying to destabilize her. It was time to confront him, once and for all. That morning the room was full, and the atmosphere was charged with expectation. Emma's ideas had gained support, but Mark's threat still loomed over her. When the manager announced it was time to discuss the final feedback, Emma's heart raced. She took a deep breath, remembered all the battles she had faced, and decided she would not let Mark intimidate her again. Mark was the first to speak up. "Why continue with this approach, Emma? It's clear it's not going to work," he said with a sarcastic smile. All eyes turned to her, and Emma felt the pressure rise. But instead of backing down, she stood up. "Mark, I understand your concerns. However, the only way for us to move forward is by trying new solutions. What do you suggest we do?" Her voice was firm, and the words sounded more like an invitation to collaborate than a defense. The room fell silent. Some people began to nod, and Emma felt a small surge of hope. Mark, however, was not willing to back down. "The problem is that you don't have enough experience to lead this. You're just fooling yourself," he shot back, his voice filled with contempt. In that moment, Emma felt a wave of conflicting emotions. It was as if all the insecurities she had struggled to overcome came rushing back, but instead of letting it bring her down, she remembered Ethan, their conversations, how he always encouraged her to keep going. "Experience is built through practice, Mark, and that includes learning from mistakes. I'm not perfect, but I'm willing to try and grow," she replied, feeling the strength of the words she spoke. The tension in the room escalated. Mark seemed surprised by her response, but was unwilling to yield. He began to speak again, now trying to undermine Emma's confidence in front of the others. But instead of allowing him to destabilize her, Emma looked at her colleagues, seeking support. "I would like to hear everyone's opinion. Let's discuss how we can improve. I believe everyone here has something to contribute," she said, maintaining her composure. The dynamic in the room began to change. Other team members started raising their hands, offering their ideas and suggestions. Emma realized that by opening up and inviting collaboration, she was gathering allies instead of adversaries. The atmosphere shifted, and the voices of support began to drown out Mark's criticisms. He, realizing he was losing control of the situation, tried to raise his voice. "This isn't going to work, Emma. You're just diverting attention from your lack of leadership." But instead of feeling threatened, Emma stood her ground. "Mark, you may not believe in me, but that doesn't stop me from believing in myself. And I'm not alone. We're all in this together," she responded, her voice now resonating with conviction. The room was buzzing, and the energy shifted. Colleagues began to rally around Emma, sharing experiences and acknowledging their own struggles. With every word of support she received, she felt stronger. Mark, who had started the meeting as the protagonist, now seemed like a secondary character, and Emma was taking center stage. When the meeting ended, Emma felt a mix of relief and triumph. Although there were still challenges ahead, she knew she had overcome one of the biggest obstacles, the doubt that Mark had planted inside her. This struggle was not just about winning an argument. It was about claiming her space, her voice, and her dignity. In the following days, Emma continued to flourish. The team, now united, began to work collaboratively, and ideas flowed. With every achievement, Emma felt closer to becoming who she had always dreamed of being. With Ethan by her side, their mutual support became an invaluable source of strength. Emma realized that the true victory lay in the journey. She learned that challenges are disguised opportunities. that every criticism is a chance for growth, and that true leadership comes from within. The transformation she had experienced was not just about work, it was about the self-confidence she now radiated. And more importantly, she knew she was not alone on this journey. With a renewed sense of purpose, Emma looked to the future with hope. She was ready to face whatever came her way, confident that each step she took would lead her further in her pursuit of fulfillment and success. Her friendship with Ethan solidified, and together they became a powerful force, ready to tackle any challenge life threw at them. After the intense meeting, Emma felt light, as if a huge weight had been lifted off her shoulders. The energy that pulsed in the room still resonated in her mind. She had stood up for herself, and the team no longer viewed her as the insecure girl Mark had tried to portray. The collaborative atmosphere that formed made her realize she was not alone. The words of support from her colleagues echoed in her heart. In the days that followed, Emma noticed a significant change in the team dynamics. People began to feel more comfortable sharing ideas and suggestions. The project, which had once felt like a burden, was now being approached with renewed enthusiasm. Emma, with her collaborative spirit, encouraged open discussions, and everyone's contributions were welcomed. This transformed the work atmosphere, making it more inclusive and productive. Ethan, always by her side, also noticed this transformation. He praised Emma for her courage and determination. "You really stood out in that meeting," he said during a casual moment in the break. "I knew you had that strength inside you." Emma smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude for having someone so supportive in her life. She replied sincerely that she couldn't have done it without him by her side. As the team moved forward with the project, Emma decided it was time to have an honest conversation with Mark. She no longer saw him as a rival, but as an opportunity for learning. One day, after a meeting, she invited him for coffee. Mark looked surprised, but accepted the invitation. Sitting at a separate table, Emma took a deep breath and began. She wanted to talk about their dynamic. She noticed that Mark had many valuable ideas, and she genuinely wanted to understand his perspective. Mark looked at her with a confused but intrigued expression. He asked if she was referring to the meeting. Yes, but not just that. She wanted the team to function well, and she believed they could work together. Even if they had different approaches, that didn't have to be a problem. She spoke sincerely, hoping her willingness to engage in dialogue could open a new path. Mark hesitated for a moment, but then something changed in his expression. He admitted that he might have been a bit harsh. It's easy to criticize, but it's hard to be responsible. He respected Emma's work but was afraid it wouldn't work out. Emma smiled, feeling relieved. "Everyone has fears," she said. "The important thing is to learn from them. They should join forces and make it work together." The conversation flowed unexpectedly, and for the first time they began to see each other as allies rather than adversaries. Over time, collaboration intensified. Mark started contributing in a more constructive way, and the team benefited from this new spirit. Emma realized that by facing her fears and insecurities, she not only strengthened herself, but also helped those around her to open up. Reflecting on everything that had happened, Emma sat at her desk one afternoon watching her team work. A smile formed on her lips. She finally understood that each person has their own growth journey, and that often the challenges we face are not just about us, but about how we can uplift those around us. From that moment on, she decided her mission would be not only to advance in her career, but also to inspire and support others. Emma wanted everyone on the team to feel valued and heard. With that in mind, she began planning regular brainstorming sessions where everyone could share their ideas without fear of criticism. The emotional impact of this experience was profound. Emma felt more confident and capable, and this reflected in every aspect of her life. With the support of Ethan, and now also Mark and the team, she was ready to face any challenge that came her way. The future looked promising, and Emma knew she had found not only her voice, but also a meaningful purpose in her work and life. She was determined to continue her journey of self-discovery, and with each step, Emma felt closer to her true self. With every challenge overcome and every friendship strengthened, she became stronger. Now, more than ever, she was ready to write her own story. Emma watched her team work with a smile on her face. That vibrant, collaborative atmosphere reflected the transformation that had occurred not only within her but also with everyone around her. In recent months, she had faced challenges that seemed insurmountable, but each one had shaped her, leading her to become a stronger and more confident leader. After her honest conversation with Mark, the team had surprisingly united. Together, they overcame obstacles that had once seemed insurmountable. Emma realized that true strength lay not only in their individual skills, but in the ability to join forces and work as one. The fear and insecurity that had once dominated her were replaced by renewed determination. She remembered how difficult it had been to take that first step, but now, looking back, Emma understood that each moment of vulnerability had brought her closer to her colleagues. The friendship that had formed between her, Ethan, and Mark was a testament that even amidst rivalries, there was always room for understanding and growth. The team not only earned the respect Emma had long desired, but also created an environment where everyone felt valued. Emma saw how ideas flourished in brainstorming sessions, where every voice was heard and respected. Collaboration transformed what had once been a burden into an exciting journey. With this, Emma learned that true success was not just about achieving goals, but about cultivating meaningful relationships along the way. After this experience, Emma decided she wanted to give back. She remembered how she felt when supported by her colleagues and resolved to help others find their voice. Thus, she began mentoring them, offering advice and encouragement. This new mission not only strengthened the team, but also made her feel fulfilled. Emma realized that her growth was not just in her achievements, but in how she could positively impact the lives of others. However, Emma's journey was not without challenges. In a moment of weakness, Mark was swayed by old rivalries and tried to undermine Emma's work during an important presentation. Instead of backing down, Emma chose to act. With the courage she had discovered within herself, she stood up and presented data that proved the value of her approach, while simultaneously highlighting Mark's contributions. This act of defiance not only diffused the situation, but also showed the team that true strength lies in standing up for one's principles and supporting one another. Mark, realizing Emma's strength, made a conscious effort to redeem himself by publicly apologizing. This exchange of vulnerability further strengthened the team's dynamic. Emma felt fulfilled, not only for having overcome her challenges, but for having helped create a space where everyone could shine. What began as an internal struggle transformed into a beautiful journey of self-discovery and friendship. She understood that life is made up of ups and downs, but the most important thing is how we handle those moments. Now, Emma invited everyone to reflect on their own journeys. What challenges had they faced, and how did they manage to overcome them? She encouraged everyone to share their stories, as each experience is a valuable lesson for someone. Together, we can learn and grow. And at the end of each day, Emma smiled as she realized that she had found her purpose not just in her work, but in life. She was ready to face new challenges, not alone, but surrounded by a team that had become a true family. And as she wrote her own story, she knew that true victory was not just about winning, but about growing and uplifting those around her. So how about reflecting on your own victories and challenges? Share your story in the comments and inspire others to do the same. Together we can create a space of support and growth. If you enjoyed this story, like and subscribe for more content that touches the heart and inspires change. The time to act is now.